Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Behind the Story here on Keystroke Medium. I'm Josh Hayes here with my partner Scott Moon, and today we have Nathan Hystad, the president of Woodbridge Press, on the program. Nathan is the executive producer of the new Explorations Anthology series, and the first collection, Through the Wormhole, is due out in September. Today we're going to get the behind-the-scenes scoop on the anthology, where it came from, the challenges of working with multiple authors, and the future of the Exploration series. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Nathan, it's good to meet you. I wanted to start out, this is the first time we've met. Can you tell us a little bit about, and our audience, about yourself and kind of how Woodbridge Press got started and what it is?
Yeah, sure. I'm from outside of Edmonton, Alberta in Canada. So I'm call myself the writer from the Great White North. Just a few years ago, I really sat down and decided to start trying to become an author myself. Of course, I had every first-time author, we have this, massive epic fantasy story in us. So I sat down and started to try to write it, and 17,000 words in, I stopped and I looked at it, and got some feedback on it from a couple people, and I realized, wow, this is really horrible. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I really need to work on this. So I really focused a lot on short story writing, and I figured that was going to be the way that I was going to improve the craft and learn how to write. So that was kind of my focus. I did a lot of flash fiction and short story writing.
I know short stories and flash fiction are very popular these days, and it's a time-honored tool. All the masters basically started with short stories, with Asimov and Heinlein and all those guys.
Oh, for sure. And and myself being somewhat of a horror fan too, I've always had all the Stephen King collections and all that kind of stuff, and there was kind of no better in the horror genre for short stories than that for me. And that was kind of what I started writing, was horror short stories as well. So that's where I, kind of wet my beak into the writing world. I just did that for a couple of years, and I started submitting things after, after an arduous run of writing a couple 100,000 words probably, and getting beta readers and all sorts of help. And Josh, Science Fiction Fantasy Chronicles, spent lots of time there and working with those guys in the critique section, and just really learning what to do, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff. And after about a year or so of doing it, I got my first acceptance for a short story, and from there it just kind of rolled, and I went on a little bit of a roll with horror short stories. And I had a bunch of acceptances into, magazines and online publications, and then some anthology books and that kind of stuff. So for writing, that's really where I started from it.
That's very cool.
Is that pretty exciting, getting your first acceptance back, knowing you're going to be in a magazine?
Oh, it was just amazing, really. And the first time you get an online publication, first time you get a magazine sent to you with your story on, I have one on my wall in my office upstairs. And first time you get a book paperback with your short story, and it's just, there's kind of no other feeling, and it really drives you to keep working at it.
Yeah, I actually didn't get into writing short stories until this year, and I really enjoy. I'm predominantly a novel writer, but I really enjoy the feeling you get from the beginning and end, and the length of a short story, that it gives you just a good closure very quickly, and you get to create and then move on.
It's amazing what it feels like after you've been struggling for 18 months or something on a novel, and then you write something, you're like, man, that felt kind of good actually. I don't actually want to smash my face against the wall at the end of that.
A lot of novel writers who, they'll take a break from their project and they'll write a short story, and they'll just kind of clear themselves and get back into the groove with something new and fresh. And I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have a million ideas all the time, and sometimes short stories are a good way to just kind of get those out. The first novel I wrote, which just was finished this year, and I'm still kind of working to get it to beta reading level, actually came from the Science Fiction Fantasy Chronicles 75-word challenge. I wrote a short 75-word story, and I loved it, and I wanted to write a novel about it, and that's what I did.
Oh, very cool. So tell us a little bit about Woodbridge. How did you go from writing short stories to now owning your own publishing company where you're doing anthologies? Have you done any novel length works? Did you have plans to do those, or right now are you just focusing on the anthologies?
Well, so yeah, I really had this. I had this idea to, and I started with my horror collection. I had this idea to do a shared world horror anthology. I mean, I love being in the projects I've been in and writing the things I've written, but it feels a little stale sometimes when you pick up a horror collection and you're going, okay, sometimes they have a theme to it, sometimes they don't. And I really wanted to do something different to set myself apart from all of these other small presses out there.
Right.
You find writing in a group.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I would say writing in a group like that, do you find that it changes the way you write, or the energy maybe, or how does it change the process for you?
It was pretty cool. From the get-go, I had the idea for the project, and I went, okay, well, I don't want to write in this. I want to produce it. I want to create the backstory. I want to set the mood and the tone. And I ended up inviting authors to take part in it. And I went, it's just me, and time is limited as always with everybody. I wasn't ready to go through a slush pile and all this stuff. So I really reached out to authors I knew that I could work with well and who were really good writers and would be able to craft some great stories. So I really just set to work at creating a background for this haunted hotel, and there's 13 rooms in it, and I just kind of set the scene, the feel, the mood, the character descriptions for the staff there, and all this other stuff. People just kind of went to town, and it was great fun. When I first started the idea for the project, I thought, you know what? I think this is what I need to do. It felt like something clicked, and I've always had a huge passion for books and for writing and all this stuff. Something clicked, and I said, this is what I have to do. And I decided I wanted to start with a horror, work to a science fiction and a fantasy, and just see what happens and how it works. So that's really where I decided I'm going to create a press, and the name is actually the neighborhood we live in my city, Sherwood Park. There's actually a wooden bridge, and my logo is taken from that wooden bridge that crosses the pond that we walk by every day with our dog.
Oh, very cool.
There you go. Yeah.
So Woodbridge Press seemed like a no-brainer, and it fit perfectly with what I was doing. So.
Oh yeah. For the Through the Wormhole Anthology, which is your second anthology, it's done under the label of exploration.
Yeah.
And you worked with Ralph Kern a little bit. How did you and Ralph kind of just take the wheel on that and go with it, or was it something that you were doing already and just Ralph? Because it seems like you guys are working together with the collection of the stories. Can you walk us through a little bit of the process with explorations?
Sure. I had this idea, and it was the same thing. I wanted to do shared world is what I was thinking. It just seemed like I needed to do something different to stand out, and that's where I decided I'm going to do this science fiction one. I'm going to focus on it, and this was, I think, November of last year already. It's been that long. And I reached out to Ralph because I know him from the Chronicles, and I've read his stuff, and I'm a big fan of his, and he's always very receptive to things. And he was really excited and on board from the start. So instead of me just, inviting him to be part of it, he was a great asset, and he was just wonderful to work with, and he had suggestions, and we worked on the title of the project together. We're just messaging back and forth with 20 different titles, potentials, and all this other stuff. So we really worked on the whole thing together from the start. And he came up with the majority of the backstory, the history, and all, and the technology side of it. And we worked on it together, but I kind of gave him some free rein on that kind of stuff, and it worked out just perfect. So that's kind of where it began. And from there, to be honest, having Ralph's name attached to it, working with him, it really drew some other names in that maybe wouldn't have just wanted to be part of a project with some unknown Woodbridge Press. So it really brought a lot of credibility, and it was great.
Yeah, Ralph Kern's a great guy. He hasn't met him yet. He's such a good collaborator, and he's kind of a facilitator, and he knows people, and he writes, of course, really well. And he's good to have on any project.
Saying we've actually become quite good friends, and he seems all of a sudden he knows everybody. So we met through him. I know Jacob Cooper and all these people that were kind of becoming a community and working together on stuff, and he seemed to be the center of it at the start. So it's been pretty cool.
So tell me about how you set up the authors for the anthology. I know a lot of them you had lined up from works that you've read and that you liked, and then you reached out to them. Did you have people that were interested in it because they knew you from SFF Cron and they applied to be on it or submitted to be on it? Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about the process of selecting the authors for the anthology?
Sure. Initially I reached out to a few people, and lots of them were people I've read and really admired and liked their work. And at the same time, I'd invite somebody and they would say, "Oh, you knew would be really good for this would be so-and-so." So some of it came from that, and I hadn't necessarily read them, and some of them I took on their word for it, and it just kind of went from there. Initially, I think we had 12 authors initially, and 2 actually dropped out throughout the process of it, and it took time, and I understand people are busy and they have schedules and book deadlines and all this other stuff, so It wasn't a big deal, and that's where a few spots opened up, and Josh, actually, you were one of those spots because we hadn't been introduced yet, and your story was awesome. And
thanks, I appreciate that.
So we went there, and then I Science Fiction Fantasy Chronicles has been a big part of kind of bringing me up as a writer, and I really want to. Any chance I get, I want to give back to the community too. So I did open a submission call for the Chronicles alone, not to anywhere else. We actually accepted 4 stories from it to push the number to 14 stories. So it was pretty cool. The level of stories we got were really high, and I expected that. And it was, to be honest, one of the hardest parts I've had to deal with so far was actually sending rejections for submissions, because I had invited everyone else so far, and but it's all part of the process. And I think so when I sent out the rejections, I was sure to give the accurate reasons why and what didn't quite work for me, and just feedback is what I was for. I don't know how many times I've sent a submission in for something and you get a form rejection and you're just shaking your head, okay, no problem, moving on to the next thing. But it's nothing more valuable than getting good feedback and constructive criticism on your work.
Absolutely. With that being said, and having to go through submissions and accept or reject authors, do you have any tips as a writer / producer of anthologies? Do you have any tips for writers who are looking to get into future anthologies that Woodbridge will put on?
It's a short story really needs to just kind of grab you from the start. And that's where, when we talk about some of these projects, and in a shared world where everyone's stories have to be they're kind of at the same starting point almost, you really need to start out kind of in the action, or something needs to be happening where, in the new project that I'm producing, we're working on, the last thing we want is to have 14 stories about a ship traveling somewhere for the first quarter of the story. We let's get them there and have the action starting. That's one of the most important things, is to take us there, grab us right away. You want to have a complete story. Lots of times people they'll start from something and they'll take us to cliffhangers can be okay, but you still need a complete story arc within your short story, right? Make us like your characters, start us with action, and that's really all we're asking for. And it's really about paring down your words. And you guys interviewed Sam Peralta, and he said it really well, or he had a 1,000-word story that was his thing he likes to show everyone. It's true, though. You can really have a complete story in a very few amount of words. And that's really the goal, is to make a great story in a few amount of words. And we're giving you 5,000 to 10,000 words in these collections, so there is a lot of room to play still, but we still have to make those words count and really add some impact in them.
Right. So tell me, working with all these authors, what has it made you feel like as a writer and producer of this anthology?
It's just really been kind of crazy, working with some of these names that I've read. I have their books on my bookshelf and all over my Kindle, and I'm a big fan of all of theirs. And now all of a sudden, I'm kind of immersed with them. I'm part of their community almost, and sending emails back and forth and messengers. And I'm working with them on maybe tweaking something in their story, and it's just been phenomenal. Really, it's been quite the thing. Actually, I have a really cool story to share. One of the authors who is in the next collection, in the First Contact, Chris Kennedy. I was talking with him, and he was just asking me about Woodbridge and different things, and I mentioned that I have a fantasy collection coming out called Journeys, and he said, "Okay, well, who's it with? What's it about?" And I kind of mentioned some of the names, and I said, Gail Z. Martin is in it, and he went, "Well, I'm really good friends with her. I'm seeing her this weekend at a convention." So it just really shows you that. And I have her books on my bookshelves. I read 10 of her books or whatever it is, and it's just such a small world, and it's pretty neat to see that and be part of it. He came back from that convention, and he sent me a message, asked me for my address, and he sent me her newest book, a personalized signed copy of her newest book, and it's just phenomenal. Just the really neat making these connections with these guys is pretty great stuff.
Okay, well, having this anthology come out, will you tell us a little bit about when you think it's going to release, and what's the future for Woodbridge Press in the next year?
Yeah, sure. We're, Explorations Through the Wormhole is tentatively scheduled to be released September 2nd, Friday, September 2nd. And it's going to be great. I think I'm really excited for everyone to get the chance to read this book, and I'm really proud of everything that's been put into it. And it's been a lot of work, but a lot of really exciting times. Moving forward, Woodbridge has a few more releases, actually. By February 14th, we will have published 5 books.
Oh,
so
wow.
I have projects ahead of me, and I'm going to be a great winter here for me. We have a follow-up to Explorations in the series is going to become hopefully a full-blown continuous series, and Explorations First Contact will hopefully be out near the end of this year or early 2017, depends on how everything works out. Okay. I'm really excited about that. I'm also producing a collection of fantasy short stories, and it's called Journeys, and that is actually scheduled for around the same time as First Contact, so they're going to kind of coincide almost with the scheduling. And then February 14th, we actually are publishing our first full-length novel, the first in a 4-book series. It's called Heartblade by Juliana Spink Mills, and I'm blown away with this book, and I'm so excited to be the one who gets the joy of publishing it. It's going to be a really good time, and that's actually an urban fantasy young adult book.
Oh, very cool.
Definitely like the title. It's a very good, excellent title too. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I read it over a year ago as a beta reader, and when I decided to start Woodbridge actually earlier this year, I reached out to the author and just asked if I could maybe see it again, and if there was a chance she would potentially want to work with me. So when I read it again, it was a no-brainer on my behalf, and I was just really thankful that Juliana accepted my offer, and we're going to work together.
That's very cool. For any of the authors that are out there watching, where can they go for information on getting into any future anthologies, and where can they go for information on Woodbridge? I
don't have a schedule for the next projects moving forward. The 2 that are coming up the lineups are full, and most of the projects have been invite only, although I do have some plans for a couple groups to do some submission calls.
Okay.
Anyone can really reach out to me if they have an interest, and I'll definitely take a look at their stuff, and we can go from there. You can check out my website at www.woodbridgepress.ca, and I'm also on Twitter at Woodbridge Press.
Okay, well, thanks, Nathan, for coming on Behind the Story. We're having an entire series of authors from the Explorations Through the Wormhole collection come on, and we're going to have all 14 interviews up and ready for the release of Explorations Through the Wormhole. So if you like this interview and you're interested in the authors of the series, check out our YouTube channel. We'll have a playlist of all the authors and all their episodes there at keystrokemedium.com and on our YouTube channel. So for Scott Moon and Nathan Hystad, I am Josh Hayes. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Take care.